The night held its breath. Snow had fallen all afternoon, then settled into silence. In the narrow lanes of Edo's Honjo district, footprints vanished within moments. Paper lanterns hung from eaves, dull with frost. Beneath one, a man crouched, a runner, low in rank, dressed in brown, face half covered by a scarf. His task was not glory. His name was unrecorded. His work was light, movement, and time. He waited near the rear wall of a large residence, Kira Yashinaka's estate. Inside, guards stood watch, unaware of what would come. The snow muted the world. A lantern trembled in the wind. He tightened his grip on its handle. It was Jinroku 15, 11th month, 14th night, by later calendars, January 30th, 1703. Almost 2 years had passed since their lord, Asano Naganori, had drawn a blade inside Edo Castle, breaking protocol. His target, the high-ranking court official Kira, had been wounded but survived. Asano was ordered to end his life that same day. With no heir, AKO domain was dissolved. Over 300 retainers were dismissed. Most left. A few stayed behind, without title or protection, Ronin, samurai without a lord. Some, led by Ōishi Kuranasuke, chose silence. The runner had followed Ōishi for months. His duties were small, signaling when a coded scroll was read, watching for couriers, marking which watchmen's routes shifted. Tonight, he waited for the first flash of light, the signal to approach. He remembered the quiet way Ōishi had spoken to him 3 nights ago, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You will not hold a sword," the older man said. "But you will hold our intent." A lantern flickered from across the compound, a rhythm, 3 slow, 2 fast. "Begin." He moved along the wall, snow crunching lightly. Another runner mirrored his motion near the southeast corner. At pre-marked points, coils of rope and frayed sashes had been left. One bundle was his responsibility, to hoist a ladder made from bamboo and gate hinges. He tied the ladder quietly, hands steady despite the cold. The knot had been practiced 100 times in a storage house beneath a sake shop. Tonight it had to hold. Overhead, shutters remained closed. The household had gone to rest hours ago. Kira, it was believed, was asleep. Nothing in the runner's motions suggested hatred. Only purpose. He lit his signal lantern and tucked it under the eave, the glow just visible from above. That was his role, the rear team entry lantern. When seen, it would guide the second group to their post. Snow gathered in his sleeves. A dog barked in the distance, then stopped. Within the walls, others prepared. Some would enter through gates, some would scale, some would wait. Each man had a name recorded in a ledger Ōishi kept hidden beneath a temple's floorboard. They had rehearsed for this for over a year. Many had taken ordinary work to disguise their movements. Ōishi himself had spent months in Kyoto, cultivating the appearance of indulgence, a tactic, not a fall. Tonight, that mask fell away. The runner remained at his post, eyes on the lantern's glow. No words. No sword. Just readiness. Snow thickened again. And then the ropes were pulled taut. The runner had not known Lord Asano well. Few did. He remembered a distant glimpse, one spring, 3 years prior, of the daimyo walking the corridors of Ako Castle, robes pressed, eyes steady, not cold. Asano Naganori ruled a small domain on the inland sea. His was a quiet post, yet honorable. Then came Edo, and the duty of receiving imperial envoys. A task steeped in ceremony, filled with nuance, overseen by officials like Kira Yashinaka, a senior court instructor. The runner only knew fragments, heard in alley whispers, pieced from messages folded within sleeves. Kira had demanded tribute. Asano had refused. What words were spoken inside Edo Castle on April 21, 1701, would never be known in full. What is recorded is that Asano drew a blade across Kira's face, not fatal, but within castle walls, such an act shattered protocol. The law was swift. That same day, Asano was ordered to accept the sentence under the law. His estate was seized. His retainers, over 300, were cast adrift. The runner, then a young footman, watched servants burn documents, surrender weapons, and dismantle clan seals. For a samurai, to lose one's lord was to become a shadow. Ronin, wandering men without a master, faced distrust, surveillance, and the loss of livelihood. Some took work as guards, others vanished. But Ōishi Kuranosuke, Asano's chief counselor, waited. While the shogunate forbade retaliation and instructed order, rumors spread that Kira faced no penalty. That protection outweighed balance. For a year, Ōishi gave no sign of dissent. He moved to Yamashina, near Kyoto. Drank in public. Slept in the day. Allowed others to speak ill of him. Many assumed the Asano affair was over. Yet quietly, names were gathered. Correspondence was hidden in temple walls. Codes were tested with false deliveries. A charcoal seller's route revealed guard timings. The runner became part of this long quiet. He delivered slips of paper marked only with ink dots. He followed tailors who sold nothing, priests who lingered too long in certain shops. Each note bore no threats. Only times. Street names. Materials needed. A number, 47. That number changed, sometimes. Some withdrew. Some were told to stand down. No one was compelled. It was said the plan was to fulfill their duty to their former lord, not in revenge, but in rectification. A concept within Bushido, the way of loyalty, duty, and restraint that bound samurai life. But to do so would break the law they once upheld. The runner learned that even silence can feel heavy. Snow muffled his steps, but not his thoughts. That evening, just hours before the signal lantern was lit, Ōishi gathered the men in an empty tea-house near Ryogoku Bridge. There was no ceremony. No chant. He said only, "It is time." Then handed each man a white cord. The runner received his in silence. No sword. No armor. Just the cord, and his task. By then, the snow had already begun to fall. Before snow ever fell on Edo, they practiced disappearing. Ōishi knew the law's gaze was long. Shogunate officials watched the former AKO retainers closely, fearing unrest. In the wake of the Asano incident, to act rashly was to doom them all. So Ōishi chose patience, not weakness, but camouflage. In Kyoto, he let his beard grow long, his robes go rumpled. He wandered the pleasure quarters, drank until dawn. He took rooms in disreputable inns. Spoke loudly. Laughed when scorned. To those watching, he seemed to have abandoned honor. But inside his sleeve, always, was a ledger, thin, hand-copied, filled with names. The runner saw it once, held open between Ōishi's fingers and a lacquered fan. Each name marked not by title or rank, but by signal sign, a lantern knot, a gate mark, a river pebble color. A hidden map of resolve. While Ōishi disarmed suspicion, others worked quietly. One Ronin became a charcoal seller and mapped the alleys near Kira's estate. Another posed as a merchant, delivering sandals to a servant inside the compound, counting steps between doors. A third joined a fire brigade and learned which houses nearby had empty attics and loose shutters. The runner's work was to carry the between, scraps of inked silk hidden in umbrella handles, beads tied in patterns to prayer ropes, burned notes whose ashes revealed only timing. All of it quiet. None of it swift. It was not only the outer world they had to deceive. It was also themselves. To live as though there were no plan. To wake each day uncertain whether the signal would ever come. Some questioned. One man left, asking, "Is delay loyalty?" Ōishi answered, "Is haste." Snow had not yet fallen then. It was early autumn. In Edo, Kira Yashinaka continued his official duties. His residence remained guarded, but not like a fortress, comfortable, not fortified. Perhaps he believed the law had already spoken. Perhaps he trusted the shogunate's order would prevail. But among the Ronin, the decision had not vanished. It had simmered, wrapped in masks of routine. As the year turned cold, letters went out. From Ōishi, return quietly. The hour nears. Some came by ship, others on foot. They arrived separately. Lodged in warehouses, stables, bathhouses. Always apart. Never more than 3 in one place. They were not men of war anymore. They wore laborers' robes. Their blades wrapped in cloth, polished not for show, but for function. The runner rejoined Ōishi in Edo 3 days before the raid. Ōishi said little. Only, you know your route? Yes, the runner answered. No detours, Ōishi said. No witness. He gave the runner a fresh lantern, unlit, rimmed in black lacquer. Its base bore one word, written inside the paper lining, endure. That night, snow gathered on temple roofs. And in a silent storeroom near Ryogoku, 47 bundles were checked, sealed, and carried under moonlight to hidden doors across the city. The snow thickened the silence. In alleys behind Kira Yashinaka's residence, bundles were unwrapped. Within them, robes of matching color, ropes of pre-measured length, ladders bound with rice straw twine. Every item was chosen for function, not glory. The runner lit a wick inside his lantern, careful not to let the flame rise too high. It would burn for only 1 hour, just enough for the assigned movements. Each man had been given a route, a signal, and a phrase to say if captured. Most would enter from 2 directions, the front gate, and the rear wall, where the runner had placed the earlier guide light. The plan had no flourish. Its strength was in clarity. Ōishi had insisted on it, we do not strike from hatred. We complete what duty asks. They had waited nearly 2 years. Not for revenge, but for readiness. Inside the estate, Kira's guards numbered perhaps 20. Maybe more. Records differ. Most assumed the threat had passed. Even Kira himself, sources say, had reduced his watchmen. The runner was positioned near the rear entry, second group. His role was fixed, maintain line-of-sight lantern signaling during the approach, then move inside to assist in communications between the forward rooms and the garden corridor. He was not to lift a weapon. His duty was time and light. Above, snow fell steadily on the roof tiles. The waxed paper of the lantern began to bead with moisture. Then, across the alley, a second flame rose. The front team was in place. Ōishi had waited until the ox hour, shortly after 2 in the morning. City gates were closed. Couriers ceased their rounds. Even the wind was low. A small team disabled the estate's drum signal by cutting the cords on its alert post. Others moved to block the messenger gates with pre-cut beams. The latter team scaled storage sheds, using window beams to secure passage over the inner walls. They had trained this move dozens of times, inside an abandoned villa far outside Edo. Always in pairs. Never rushed. The runner turned his lantern once, then again. The response came immediately. Coordination confirmed. Still, nothing stirred inside the house. It was remarkable, he thought. So much motion, and yet no sound. He looked to his left. A small token, a folded strip of parchment, hung from the sash of one Ronin preparing to climb. He recognized it, the list of names entrusted to the temple priest near Sengaku-ji. Each man had signed it in ink. A copy would be placed with Asano's resting place, the other handed to officials when the task was done. Ōishi had forbidden any destruction of documents or excess. Their intent was to fulfill duty, then surrender. They did not wish to escape. The runner tucked his lantern against his chest as the command passed softly between doorways. Enter. Ropes tightened. Wooden slats gave way. Latches lifted. From every point, doors, walls, cellar paths, the house began to open. The snow did not stop falling. The threshold was crossed not with shouts, but with breath. Snow softened every step. Where others might rush with noise, these men moved with precision. Ladders kissed the walls. Doors were unlatched from inside, using servant routes mapped months before. Some entered through garden gates, others from the main corridor, where ropes had replaced hinges the night before. The runner passed through a rear storage shed, the one with the damp rice sacks. From there, he signaled inward, 2 flashes through a shoji seam, to confirm the western wing was sealed. The estate was large, but not a fortress. Its design favored ceremony over defense. Hallways wide enough for procession, gardens designed for moon viewing. But tonight, no moon showed. Only snow and the steady lantern glow. Ōishi had divided the group. One team for Kira's personal chambers, another to hold the rear courtyard, a third to secure servants, preventing alarm. The rest were stationed along outer walls, watching for city patrols. All wore the same brown robes, bound with white cords. Their weapons were not polished for show. No family crests were visible. No names spoken aloud. The runner saw men he had passed months ago in bathhouse corridors, now tightening knots with the calm of artisans. One placed a wedge under a sliding door to avoid creak. Another laid woven straw across a stone path to muffle steps. Even in that moment, no one rushed. A boy, no older than 16, passed the runner carrying a coil of rope across his shoulders. He gave a small nod before disappearing into the inner hallway. His task was to bind doors shut once rooms were cleared. The runner moved forward, following the corridor toward the central hall, where the paper lantern he had lit outside now flickered gently in a high alcove. It had been placed there as a beacon for regrouping, a single point of light against the dark wood. As he approached, a figure emerged, Ōishi himself. No helmet. No raised voice. Just eyes sharp and still. He said, "No fires. No shouting. We complete the duty and leave." Then he turned toward the heart of the house. From one side came the soft shuffle of sandals. From another, a faint thud, a door secured. Elsewhere, a guard had called out once, then gone quiet. The runner heard none of the words. Only the change in the house's rhythm. Rooms that had been still now breathed. And then, a bell. Small, hand-held, rung once from the northern wing. A signal, Kira's room had been reached. Accounts differ on what happened next, whether he had hidden in a storeroom or behind a screen. Whether he was found swiftly or delayed discovery. But all agree, the defenders were overpowered. The task was done. The runner paused beside a cedar pillar. He touched the lacquered edge of his lantern. Its light was steady. So he turned it 3 times, signaling outward. Begin withdrawal. Within Kira's residence, the air held the weight of decisions just made. Shoji's screen stood askew, but not broken. Tatami mats bore footprints, not wreckage. The Ronin moved deliberately, room by room, guided not by impulse but by procedure. The runner stepped through a narrow corridor, following behind a lantern-bearer. In the rooms they passed, guards sat bound and unharmed, back straight against wooden pillars. One gave a nod as the runner passed, silent, wary, alive. The plan had accounted for uncertainty. Kira's exact sleeping room had changed recently. His inner guards had been rotated the week before. Some details shifted between informants. So 3 routes were prepared for final entry, each with their own fallback. In the western chamber, Ōishi had assembled several of the senior men. He held a document, unsealed, signed with his name and seal of the former Asano house. Its message was simple: the cause was loyalty to Asano Naganori, not personal hatred. It must be left behind, Ōishi said quietly, with the body. No dramatics. No declarations. Just the record. When Kira Yashinaka was found, accounts differ whether behind a folding screen or beneath storage cloth, he did not resist. What followed was swift and within the limits of their vow. No cruelty. No excess. The task was completed. His identity confirmed by his household men, his status documented by name. One man recited a brief verse, not for victory, but for clarity. We do not rise by striking. We return to the soil by walking straight. Ōishi gave the signal. Bells were rung, once, twice, from both east and west halls. The Ronin regrouped. In the main entry, doors were opened wide. Lanterns hung at even intervals along the corridor. A list of names, bound in thread, was placed neatly beside Kira's personal seal chest. All items were left untouched. No looting. No spoils. No symbols taken. The runner stood in the outer garden with a group assigned to verify the perimeter. The snow had thickened again, covering the tracks of their entry. He looked upward, light from within the house gave the snow a faint orange hue. He heard a voice near the entry gate. Ōishi, the duty is complete. We walk to Sengaku-ji. No one shouted. Some exhaled for the first time in hours. One man knelt by a potted pine, placed a folded strip of cloth on the stone step, and murmured a name. The runner touched his sleeve, checking the charm cord still tied near the inner hem. It was wet with snow and sweat, but intact. No man was left behind. Two had been lightly injured, a twisted foot and a shoulder cut. Both were supported by companions, neither speaking of pain. They would walk the same path. The house, once guarded, now stood open. And above it, the snow continued to fall, covering ropes, prints, and plans. After the signal bell faded, only snow and breath filled the stillness. The residents no longer resisted. Its lanterns burned low, casting long shadows against paper screens. The Ronin moved like temple attendants, not soldiers, not criminals, but men completing a solemn rite. In the entry hall, Ōishi Kuranosuk knelt to inspect the final documents. The list of participating names, written in black ink on rice paper, was placed within a lacquered box bearing the Asano crest. Beside it, the letter of intent, composed weeks earlier, signed and sealed. He placed them both beside Kira Yashinaka's personal registry, ensuring the house's own records would reflect what had transpired. Let it be clear, Ōishi said, not hidden. The runner stood outside the southern gate, watching the snowfall grow heavier. His task was nearly complete: maintain lantern position, then prepare the signal to withdraw fully. Two men emerged from the courtyard carrying a third between them, minorly injured, his leg wrapped with a strip of cotton robe. The injury came from a fall, not from conflict. He smiled faintly when he saw the runner. We finish as we began, he said, on our feet. They moved with care. None were left behind. Ōishi had ordered that even minor injuries be tended with dignity. A physician, once an AKO retainer, now a tea-house server, unwrapped a small bundle of herbal compresses and distributed them without fanfare. In the rear corridor, one Ronin carefully replaced a hanging scroll that had fallen during the breach. It bore a poem in quiet ink, verses on restraint. He wiped the frame clean before rejoining the others. Meanwhile, the garden team gathered small items for Sengaku-ji, a bundle of pebbles from the courtyard, a clipping from a pine tree, and ashes from a lantern wick. None of these were trophies. They were tokens, silent acknowledgments of where duty had been fulfilled. The runner folded the light screen on his lantern. The final signal had been passed. By now, the city had begun to stir. Though still early, the distant creak of merchant carts echoed from beyond the neighborhood. Inside the house, the bell was rung once more, short and low. It was time to walk. Ōishi stood before the gathered men, his voice steady. We leave in silence. Our names will follow. Each man took his place, forming pairs. Injured walkers supported by uninjured. The documents carried in front, guarded not by force, but by formation. The runner extinguished his lantern and tied it to his sash. As he passed the outer gate, he looked back once, only once. The estate stood open, unburned, undisturbed. Only the snow marked what had happened. In the alley behind, a servant from a neighboring house watched from a crack in his shutters. He said nothing. Only lowered his eyes and turned away. The group passed him like a slow procession. Toward Sengaku-ji, toward their lord, toward the judgment they did not resist. They walked without banners. No drums. No chants. Only the sound of sandals brushing snow and the faint creak of scabbards shifting beneath traveling cloaks. Through the alleys of Honjo, past shuttered stalls and still sleeping quarters, the 47 Ronin made their way toward Sengaku-ji. The runner held no lantern now. His hands were bare, tucked into sleeves for warmth. The cold bit through the cloth. The snow had turned to a fine powder, swirling in low gusts between gateposts. They passed the edge of Ryogoku Bridge as the eastern sky paled faintly. A few townsmen, rising early for market trade, stood frozen as the procession moved past. Some bowed without knowing why. Others whispered. From behind, he heard a voice, low, respectful. Those are AKO men. They've done it. The runner kept his eyes forward. No one in the group acknowledged the words. They crossed Kajamachi, past the quiet gate of Zojoji, where a single monk sweeping snow paused, staff in hand. He made no move to stop them. Ōishi walked at the front. His posture calm, his pace unhurried. He held in his hands the lacquered box, Asano's registry, the letter of intent, and the name scroll. At Sengaku-ji, the temple steps were swept clear. Word had reached them through unknown channels, perhaps from a stable boy or a guard who had quietly stepped aside. None of the men questioned how. The path was open. They climbed the stone stairs in pairs. Each placed something on the ground before the resting place of Asano Naganori, a folded letter, a strip of cloth, a token. The runner placed a piece of broken lantern wood, still warm from his palm. Ōishi knelt last. He placed the document box before the stone and bowed deeply. It is done, he said. The abbot emerged with several attendants. No sermon was spoken. No incense burned. The group stood quietly as temple bells marked the rising hour. Outside the gate, a crowd had begun to gather, some in work robes, others wrapped in night clothes, barefoot in snow. Whispers passed like wind. They accepted it. They came here, not to flee. The runner stepped back into the formation. He looked at their faces, calm, marked with frost, streaked with sweat not from exertion, but from waiting. Ōishi turned once more. He addressed no one in particular, yet his words carried. We did not act to defy the law. We acted because law and duty parted. There was no reply. Behind the crowd, city officials were already arriving. Quiet instructions passed between guards. They did not draw weapons. The Ronin offered no resistance. They would remain at Sengaku-ji until the court's decision was rendered. The snow lightened. And the sky, once dark, now held the color of ash warming toward pale fire. They stood beneath it, not as fugitives, but as witnesses to their own path. They remained at Sengaku-ji for 2 nights. The temple provided space and warmth, but no illusions. Each man knew the law. To raise arms against a court-appointed official, even for loyalty's sake, was a crime. The choice had never promised escape. Messengers arrived by midday of the second day. Couriers from the Tokugawa Bakufu, bearing folded letters in blue silk sleeves. Not arrest orders. Not yet. They were notices of detainment. Until the court could deliberate, the 47 were to be housed separately, under care, not chains. 4 groups, assigned to 4 daimyo estates known for their discipline. Ōishi accepted the instructions without protest. He handed over the name scroll, now signed and sealed. "Those named here," he said, "accept all that follows." As the men departed Sengaku-ji in small groups, no one tried to flee. No one altered their name. Each carried only what was allowed, no blades, no tokens, no parting letters but the ones left at the temple. The runner was sent with the group to the residence of Matsudaira Sadaneo, a quiet estate near the inner moat. There, the retainers treated them respectfully, providing meals and bedding. But the gates remained closed. Winter passed slowly. Each day, the runner awoke at the same hour, folded his blanket, and copied a passage from his memory: the sound of lantern feet on snow, the stillness of Kira's gate, the weight of silence at Asano's grave. Letters from family were allowed. His came with a piece of thread tied in a loop, his younger brother's gift, a token of pride and sorrow. "I heard you walked all the way," it read. "I will walk carefully in your shadow." The court deliberated for weeks. Public conversation swelled. Some saw the act as rebellion, others as purity of duty. Debates reached poetry houses, shrines, and the halls of scholars. In the end, the decision came, quiet, but absolute. They would accept the sentence under the law. No punishment by sword. No executions in the street. Instead, each man would follow the same path their lord had walked, the formal acceptance of responsibility, carried out by their own hand, with witnesses present. Ōishi thanked the messengers. He was given time to write final letters. One, addressed to his son, read, "Do not carry my burden. Carry only what is upright." The runner received his instructions last. His letter was short. "To my family, do not grieve the law. Remember only that I walked in snow with others who chose not to wait." At dawn, the sentences were carried out across the 4 estates. No one resisted. No one faltered. The city was quiet that morning. Officials recorded each step. Monks prepared offerings. Guards stood with heads bowed. By mid-morning, the remains were gathered. All 47 were brought to Sengaku-ji. There, beside Asano Naganori's resting place, they were laid to rest. Side by side. Sengaku-ji remained quiet that day. The stones of the temple courtyard held the weight of names now etched into history, not for conquest, not for defiance, but for the stillness of a single decision carried through winter and law. The graves of the 47 Ronin were arranged beside that of Asano Naganori. Simple markers. Wooden posts bound in white cords. No lavish inscriptions. Just the shape of memory, cut into earth. Crowds began to arrive before noon. Some brought incense. Others brought snow from their rooftops, pressed into handfuls and placed at the base of the gravestones. An offering of season and silence. The runner's name, though modest in standing, was carved with care. The temple record noted him as signal bearer, nothing more. But among those who had seen the lanterns move across the snow, the roll meant everything. In the weeks that followed, Edo whispered. Children reenacted the raid with paper swords. Couriers recited names aloud. Carpenters paused outside Sengaku-ji to bow before returning to their work. Poets debated not what had happened, but what it meant. The Tokugawa shogunate, though unshaken in power, understood the resonance. Justice had been administered. Yet in its execution, something older had risen, a story of balance between law and duty, obedience and honor. Over time, the Ako incident became legend. Plays were written, some stylized, others solemn. Woodblock prints showed snowy rooftops, lantern light, and paired footprints in moonlit alleys. The runner's signals became motifs in poems. One light turns, became a phrase for choosing clarity over fear. The word Bushido, once quiet, practiced more than spoken, now filled conversation. The way of the warrior, defined by duty, loyalty, and self-discipline, found new breath. Not all agreed. Some scholars warned of glorifying defiance. Others pointed to the law's necessity, that civilization depended on its even hand. But still, the image endured. 47 walking through snow, side by side, to kneel at a grave. Years later, when the runner's younger brother came to Sengaku-ji, he brought with him a new charm, stitched in the same pattern, with the same thread. He tied it to a lantern post near the gate and whispered, "He walked all the way." The charm remained through spring. Today, the temple stones still stand. Footsteps still echo between the gate and the resting place. And sometimes, after snowfall, visitors speak softly, not of victory, but of what it means to choose honor with no promise of reward. Not all duty lives in brightness. Some is fulfilled in shadow. What endures is not the sword. Not even the name. What endures is the walk. Thank you for watching. If you'd like more true stories from samurai history, consider subscribing for the next tale.